This week's Parshas is Parshas Shemos3. In Parshas Shemos3, there's the famous story of Moshe leading his flock of sheep into the wilderness, and he encounters the burning bush. The burning bush, of course, is where Moshe receives his instructions to lead the Jewish people out, speak to Paro, and so on. And so the story of the Jewish release from their enslavement in Egypt starts with that episode. The burning bush itself, though, is a misnomer because the bush was not burning. It was merely a flame contained within the bush that was burning, but the actual bush itself did not burn. And this is very significant, in fact. The symbolism of this bush is that the fire of Torah, what burns inside of us, which changes who we are, refines who we are, that burning, that flame, can be found even amongst the most pointless of vegetation. You have a bush which is low, it's full of thorns, it can only cause issues, it bears no fruit. Despite that, the flame can be found within that thorn bush. And it doesn't consume the thorn bush, it just burns within the thorn bush. The thorn bush itself was not burning. The symbolism of that is that the Jewish people who were in exile, who would be in exile in the future also, that exile would not necessarily deteriorate their Jewishness, their national identity, their connection to God. In fact, it's teaching us that in every place where we are, no matter how far it may be from what we would consider spiritual, there's a way to find divine presence there. There's divinity in everything. This is what Chazal call, our rabbis call, Ein makom ponim b'loi shechina. There is no place where you cannot find the Shekhinah there, where you can't find some way, some lesson, some way to use the circumstances or the place in a spiritual way. That is because the foundation of the world is spirituality. Therefore, it's impossible for really anything to exist without some connection to a spiritual existence, to some higher purpose. So when Israel is in exile, when the Jewish people are exiled, and it seems that spirituality, holiness, anything connected to God is far out and cannot be connected to within their circumstances, that is not true. Within that exile, within those circumstances which are so far removed from Israel, from the temple, and so on, there is holiness to be found everywhere, even in the thorn bush. And that's the lesson. So Moshe is imparted with his mission through this thorn bush, which within it was the angel of God who told him his directives, what he was supposed to do. And what's interesting is that as meaningful as the burning bush was, and as we said, it's not actually a burning bush, the message is the symbolism of the burning bush, that the Jewish people can withstand anything within exile, and that their spirituality can be found throughout the exile in any place, is only imparted to Moshe himself. It's an individual message to Moshe. This is not a message to the Jewish people as a whole. Like we said before, Moshe was leading his flock of sheep through the wilderness. There was no one else present at this phenomenal event. Why would that be the time for Hashem? Why did Hashem deem it appropriate and the best way to communicate this message of the immortality of the Jewish spirit, of the idea that the Jewish spirituality can be found everywhere? Why was Moshe privileged to receive this communication? And would it have not been more appropriate that the entire Jewish people hear this message? Wouldn't it have made their lives as slaves in Egypt so much better? Wouldn't it give them hope? Why was this message specifically delivered to Moshe, and why was he deserving of this, and what was the purpose? Have a good Shabbos.